it's a cult identity that's been put on them, and they've been sucked in. They're living on a cult compound, even if they're still in your house.
Yes.
Because it has been infiltrated through the entire society.
Yeah.
And to be able to turn your back on that and swim upstream, that's really hard. I give every public de-sister and detransitioner so much credit and so
I'm like,
many
those are the
kudos
real
for
stunning
doing
and
it.
braves, let me tell you.
Mhm,
Come
they sure are.
on.
We've got, by the way, Partners for Ethical Care has a
Yes.
survey out for de-sisters and detransitioners. I don't know if you can put it in anything on your video, but
Yes,
we would
I will,
love
absolutely.
to just get stories. We've had, I think, 26. It's been out for a couple of days. We've had 26 responses.
Wow.
And it's fascinating to look through those and see what these people have gone through. So please, if you're a de-sister detransitioner, we'd just love to hear your story, either through the survey or just through our website, partnersforethicalcare.com.
Okay. I don't know. I started my podcast November, and it was just me starting a podcast, rambling about. I wasn't into all this feminism or anything. It was just randomness, like, I don't know, talking about life and movies, but it very quickly, I don't know, just took a direction which I was thrilled with, and I have no problem it going in that direction. I'd rather a podcast kind of have a theme, and my whole life has been like what is that one thing you want to do in your life? And I've never been able to have that like one thing. I mean, I'm an artist, and I could never afford art school, so I had to do like general studies and the normal college thing. And then I went to a community college, and they didn't have graphic design. So I was like, I guess I'll do television production, even though it's not anything I ever thought about doing. That was actually wound up being a lot of fun. I learned a lot of techie stuff, I guess, that I implement now in my life.
Well, you're an amazing artist. I've seen the portraits that you do, and they're beautiful.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing art since like high school, and that was just something I was like, oh, I miss doing art. And when I joined all this gender critical craziness in like December, maybe I started the podcast earlier. I don't know. I can't remember. I really missed painting, because I was really finally doing the painting thing on the regular, and I was doing a lot of sewing before that. And I like sewing, but I've always known that painting is my one true passion. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to improve on painting if I'm not practicing it. So I was like, oh, I got to put the sewing to the side. But it's fun because I can go back and forth when I get bored with painting. But I was doing digital painting and much more involved paintings that don't take just like 2-3 hours, or 1 to 3, which is little sketches do.
How long does it take you? How long does it take you when you do like a portrait?
Oh, God, I hate that question, because I
never
time it. No. I don't mean like I hate you even asking that. I mean, as in I can never answer it. I hate that. I hate myself not being able to answer it, not you.
Well, you probably get lost in the process. You probably those are beautiful.
I mean, I never pick like all right, it's 10:07, and now I'm starting. I just start going.
Yeah.
So
I love the Gina Carano. I know I commented on your Gina Carano and your Aaron Brewer. Those are two of my favorites.
Thank you. Yeah, it was originally just, I don't know, random girls or guys I saw. Mostly, actually, it's girls on like Instagram that I just like their faces, or the green's not working.
Oh, wow.
There's an artist I love, George Pratt, who uses I don't know, he's just very sketchy, and when he fills in the lines, it circles, and I was like, what are you using with that? And he told me, and I was like, thank you. It's like a super fine point pen.
Oh, wow.
That has like a really nice flow to it.
Yeah. I would love to be an artist, but not so much. Oh, those look great.
Thanks. Well, I mean, I think anyone can be one, really. I do believe that some people are obviously born with a natural talent where it comes easier to them. They don't have to work as hard. But I don't know.
But it's great that you enjoy it and you're doing something with it. And I think there's a lot to be said for just the like calming of art. Like I knit and crochet. Yes. I've sewn a little bit, but like knitting and crochet is really my thing, because it's easier to take it with you. And it is so zen. It is so calming. And I actually started spinning yarn recently.
Oh, wow.
Thanks to my dad. He's a woodworker, and a few years ago, he got this bee in his bonnet and he goes, I'm going to make a spinning wheel. And I'm like, I know where this is
wow.
going. I know that I'm going to end up with a spinning wheel, aren't I, Dad? And
So, oh, why is that bad? I just realized my.
just
Anyways,
because I just am so busy. But
Oh,
he did. He made this spinning wheel. He won a contest. He entered it in a contest and won.
wow.
And next thing I know, he gives it to me. He's so generous, and it's beautiful, and I
Oh,
love it. But I
wow.
was like,
That's so
Dad, I
cool.
have too many hobbies already. But
Yep.
I've started spinning, and I got some alpaca when I went to an
Oh,
alpaca
wow.
farm, and ooh, it's so much fun. But it is spinning
That's
yarn is so
amazing.
relaxing,
I'm
and
sure. Just something about the simple, repetitive stuff that, yeah, simple things in life. And
mhm.
I always say, like, people that are like professional Twitch streamers where you're a professional gamer. I'm like, if there was a zombie apocalypse, what are you going to bring to the table? You're not, I mean, I just think that, like, life essential or basic things like knowing how to garden,
Mm,
woodwork, weld, chop wood. I don't know, like
yeah,
real basic stuff. If shit was to hit the fan, what are you gonna bring to the table?
yeah.
And I guess in a sense, painting doesn't do much, but
Well,
I can
no.
sew. Dang it, I can sew.
Hey, people have been painting on cave walls, for millennia.
That's a good
It's
point.
it's it's something that's deep inside us and that we do and that we've got to be able to express ourselves somewhere. I
Yeah.
think we're all creators. I think we all have a bent toward creating something, and whether that is paintings or videos or
Mhm.
buildings or gardens, we all have this desire to make things, and I think that's just innate to humans.
Man, for me, yeah, that was a longest answer. Never even got to it. I was doing the longer paintings that take too long, I guess, in the sense that I'm just doing so much research and interviewing people that has become my true like calling. It's just been like
Mm,
not an option for me where I've never felt anything in my life where I'm like, I have to do this because, so many people can't or they can. I don't want to say can't. It's like you
mhm,
can. Like, I just hate that they're living in this fear of the whole fear thing works. It kills
mhm.
me. Oh my God, my brain is like bursting because I'm like, I know you know about the cold stuff. I want to get into that. Just finish your damn point. So I went to the sketching stuff because that I wound up getting it done way faster than my normal paintings, and just to be able to create something and have it be to a finished product in a short
Mm,
amount of time is just like relieving. I don't know. Like same thing with sewing projects. It's the best feeling being like, I made this and
yeah.
I can actually wear this. I made
Mhm.
both these things.
You did.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
It's a
fantastic.
fun, of course, the green screen is messing it up.
Oh, well,
Um,
my daughter, my youngest daughter, who's now 13, I'm trying to get her into sewing. And we went to the store and we picked out a pattern and we bought the fabric. I'm like, okay, we got to start working on this. And she's so like, no, Mom, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But I'm like, I think you're really going to like it because she's into
I'm good.
fashion. And, I think if you
Oh,
can make
wow.
your own stuff.
I'm going to speak for myself here. I started sewing like 4 years ago. I just never had the patience for that when I was young. My mom sewed a little bit. My grandmother sewed, and I didn't learn anything from either of them, sadly.
Mm,
I mean, grandmother made like my mom's clothing and whatnot. My mom had like a sewing cubby and all this stuff, but
yeah.
I never ever saw her sewing. So I know that it just was not a thing that I ever had patience for or interest in. I mean, because you really have to have an insane amount of patience
Yeah.
and roll with the mistakes because man, do they happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's time consuming, but it's awesome. It's a
Well,
good
I
skill,
loved
man.
sewing when I was younger, and I sewed all kinds of stuff, and I've just kind of gotten away from it. You
Hmm.
go to college and you're busy, and then you start your first job and you're busy, and then you get married and have kids and you're busy.
Yeah.
But I'm now getting to a place where my kids are all teenagers, and I have a little bit more free time and kind of rediscovering some of those things that I
Yeah.
enjoy.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff is so important. That's why I was bringing that up because I was like, talking to my mom and therapist, and I'm like, I have to have a time where I can break away from all this madness because I'm like in it from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, and even when I like wake up in the middle of the night, like a conversation about gender or
Mm,
trans, it just immediately is in my head, like I just from nowhere,
yeah.
just flooding my mind. So I'm like, I have to have some sanity in all this. I'm going to go insane. I'm gonna burn out, or it's just not healthy. And I've seen some people on Twitter like just lose their shit. Not necessarily with the trans train thing, but if you just spend too much time on these apps, you'll lose your mind. period.
Yeah, I can't spend too much time in it. When I first
Yeah.
started getting involved with it, because things were going on in my school district, and I started looking into, where is this coming from? What is this about? I'd spend a couple of hours doing research, and I would just feel sick to my stomach and horrified over what's happening to kids. I spent a good deal of time crying, realizing what's happening to kids, and I really had to kind of put some boxes around it for myself, like
Yeah.
I just know I can't spend too many hours in it because, like you, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and think about something I read or something I saw, and I just can't get back to sleep, just wrapped up in the horror of it all.
Exactly. And every day it's something new, some
Mm,
person saying some ridiculous science. And
yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I'm catching up because I mean, people have been like in this craziness since like 2015. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so, it feels like I'm just delayed and joining it, I guess.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I think
yeah,
we're all behind. I think we're all
yeah,
behind the curve
yeah.
because it really just came out of nowhere. I'm not for the people who've been in it.
Mm,
Um, for the people pushing it, they've been working on this obviously strategically for a while, but
yeah.
most of us are just waking up to it. And so many people that I talk to, I mean, I listen to myself talk and I sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. I mean, I know I sound crazy. I know I do. But it's real
Yeah.
and it's coming. It's not even coming for our kids. It's already got them. If
Yeah.
your kids
Yeah.
are in the
Yeah.
public school, they've been indoctrinated.
So sad, school used to be a place you could trust to learn
Hmm.
things about the reality or just real things, I
Yeah.
guess. And yeah, I was reading an article yesterday someone shared on Le Facebook about some like 50-year-old guy that's 6'8" that joined a women's basketball team at a college. And I was like, is that because I recognized the college name on the jersey and I was like, oh my God, that's in my city. This is from
Wow.
2012.
Wow.
2012.
Yeah, I
Oh,
saw that. I saw that going around this morning,
oh
and I've
my
seen that before.
God.
And he's enormous. I mean,
Oh my
he's
God.
standing there
It's
next to these
hilarious.
women. And you're like,
What a sad sack of blank.
yeah.
I'm like, well, here's the thing. Like, why would girls not be like, especially when they've grown up with the being indoctrinated in it and just like believing this or whatever? Why would you not be like, yes, come on our team. We're gonna like kick ass because it's like they know it's a dude. I feel like they're like, yay, playing along with it because that's a huge advantage having. This guy's a
Yeah.
giant.
Well,
Like
that's a
even
really
if he's
good point.
mediocre.
Even I haven't really thought about team sports that much, but you're right. On team sports like basketball, soccer, a guy playing on a girls' team, he would be an advantage.
Oh yeah.
My son has played soccer for years, just rec leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, he's a senior now. I think this is when he was eighth grade and freshman, so it's been a little
Mm-hmm.
while. There was a kid on his team who everybody thought he was a ringer. I mean, he was big, he
Mm-hmm.
was muscular, he looked like he was 2 or 3 years older than all the other kids. And he was really good. He'd been playing since he was like 3. And we're
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, Giancarlo, we're so glad to have you on our team. But it was shortly after that, our rec league started requiring birth certificates. And I suspect it was because people were complaining, like, we don't think that's actually a 13-year-old boy. Now he was, but
Hmm.
people come in different shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a woman like Gina Carano is a strong,
Mm-hmm.
tall built woman. She's
Mm-hmm.
larger than some men are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, if he's on a team, he's going to be an asset. But
Huge.
if you're competing against him, he's going to take it. He's going to take your scholarship. He's going to kick you off the podium because he's just bigger, stronger, and faster.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not advocating for men to be ultimate. The people that do that, I'm not going to call them men because how dare I compare them to actual men that are, you know, don't play this bullshit cheater game.
I'm sad because I think a lot of these guys and girls, I think a lot of these kids, especially, and there's a difference, I think,
Oh yes.
between the adults who are quite
Mm-hmm.
often men claiming to be women and the kids that are definitely lopsided toward girls saying that they're boys. There's a
Mm-hmm.
big difference there, but I think there's a large segment of people who are just struggling with mental issues and
Yep.
really struggling with their mental health. And it's awfully hard to parse out, who that is. And I do think there are a number of men who are just being opportunistic and predatory and happy to take the prize away from women because they can't compete against other men. But I think there's also a lot of people who are just really damaged, really need some good mental health support. And
Badly.
that's part of the insidiousness of all of this, that we have to affirm, we have to affirm, we have to affirm. Well, I was talking to Erin Brewer the other day, and I said, if I go into a therapist and I've been self-cutting and I've got slice marks all on my arm, and the therapist said, what are those? And I say, oh, these are my love tattoos. You have to affirm these are love tattoos. Then the therapist can't address the fact that I'm harming myself. And therapists have really had their knees cut off, that they can't actually help people because now they're compelled to say, yes, you are transgender, when sadly, I think a lot of people just really need help understanding themselves, understanding, what other mental health issues they have. And we should be dealing with that first before we ever start getting into medicine. Because somebody who has a mental health issue, whether it's a neurotypical or a neurodiversity issue like autism, or depression or trauma or any of these other things, by definition, if you are struggling with a mental health issue, you do not have the capacity to make long-term permanent decisions about your future. Yet that's what we're not only enabling but requiring. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But
No, are you kidding me? Everything you were saying is identical to what I've been thinking this whole time. Completely. Like, don't get off your soapbox. You don't have to do that here. Yeah, it just makes me obviously really sad. And then some of it is like, I think it's also something like this where, especially the youth, or really anyone, but I think the youth's minds are much more curious about this stuff. Where they'll be like, oh, checking out subreddits where this is everywhere, or and they'll start playing with it, like dressing or whatever. And I just feel like that is, you've opened the door and you're welcoming. I just feel like your mind can easily slip into actually having dysphoria because you're playing with it. You're playing with fire, and
our brains are very elastic, and our brains get changed by what we do.
Yes.
What you see, what you experience, it changes how you perceive things. And I think you're 100% right. You start dabbling in something, and it just sort of gets a hold of you, and you just keep going down that path.
Yeah, and I feel like this whole ideology, like I think about it because I'll see people like leave a comment or whatever, and I'm like, I put my mind where they are to even make that comment, like, and they're like saying that I need to like educate myself on science and read a biology book, and I'm like, how can you? I'm like, they actually think this is real. I don't know where I was going with that. It's just it's crazy. I don't even know how. Are they teaching this in schools? That they think that this is actual biology
Yeah,
and
they're teaching this
science?
in schools.
How
Yeah.
do they teach it though? I don't understand. What do they say?
It's been funneled into every aspect of the curriculum. So in the past, and this is still what's required in most states, anything having to do with sexuality, other than like the scientific, how animals procreate, everything else related to human sexuality is supposed to be housed under the Family Life Education Program. So that's that class that you go to when you're in 4th or 5th grade, where they separate the girls and the boys and you each get the talk. And then, later they'll have a class, or they'll have a series in health class where they talk about.
Question. I don't think I ever had that. Like in elementary school where the boys leave the room?
Really?
I never had that.
I wonder if you missed that day, because it's supposed to be.
No.
This is for the reason they started it is for kids who are not getting this information at home. They were having girls who were starting to menstruate at school and had not been prepared for that and were completely flabbergasted. or boys, having some of the dreams that boys sometimes have and being like, I think I'm sick. I think I'm dying. I woke up and, everything's all wet.
Oh my
And
God, oh no.
so they started this to give kids sort of a basic understanding of this is how your body works. This is what to expect. But now that is just almost this cute, quaint little thing that they're still saying parents can opt out of that. And you can fill an opt-out letter and say, I don't want my child to go through that. But the sex and the gender training has been funneled into every class in school.
Is this the genderbread thing I've heard about?
The school counselor will bring that in and teach that. And we had an instance in my school district that a counselor came into an English class, gave a presentation on gender harassment using a video that was from a third party that was not even available for parents to see. You had to have a licensing code to get this, which is totally not okay for something that's in the school system. But she came in the 7th grade classroom, gives this gender harassment training. There was a boy in there who knew that his parents were not on board with this. So he asked if he could be excused to go to the bathroom, and the counselor would not let him leave until after the presentation. So that was in an English class. That's a core class. And the way they're doing it is they're saying, this is anti-bullying. We're teaching anti-bullying. And they say that they have to teach all this stuff about genders on a spectrum and what gender are you? And they're making little kids, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, stand up and say what gender they are.
What?
And people don't believe this is happening. This is one of those things where I'm like, I hear myself and I sound like a lunatic.
No, you don't.
It
I
is
fully
happening.
believe it.
It is happening.
In America, like, I wonder at how many schools and what kind of schools are they, like, a part of I don't even know anything about schooling terms, like certain schools in the district are, do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it every school? I'm just so curious about, like, where this is happening and how
at
common.
the beginning of this, I've been involved with this for a couple of years because we found out that my school district here in Virginia was funneling through this transgender students policy. Nobody had heard about it. A friend of mine stumbled on it on the school website when she was looking for summer school information. It was buried 3 links deep.
Of course it was.
And so she and I went to this working meeting, and that was the first thing we'd heard about it. That was 2 years ago. And as I started studying and figuring out what was going on, I thought, okay, this is a special interest group who has been funneling this into the school, and it's activist teachers. There's these rogue activist teachers who are doing this. But I have come since then to realize it's not. The NEA, the National Education Association, which is the largest teachers union in America, is pushing this. Their overall goals for this year are all around social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which are now euphemisms for transgender ideology. And they don't even care. I shouldn't say they don't care. Nothing in their policies, nothing in their goals for the year reflects consideration of the fact that American schools are now 24th among developed countries in math and reading, and 37th in science. And I think those are 2017 numbers from the Pew Research Institute. They're not even addressing how far we are behind in academics. They're pushing all of this sex and gender training. And it's genderspectrum.org is a website that I stumbled upon, and they had a toolkit for educators about how to get this stuff into schools. What I'm about to tell you about disappeared from their website, but I caught screenshots, and it's on the Arlington Parent Coalition.org website. They had 4 entry points, and they called them entry points. Just like if somebody's breaking into your house, they're looking for an entry point. The first one was internal. We got to change the way people think. The second one was interpersonal. We've got to change the way people talk. So you suddenly got all these new terms, gender fluid, cisgender, all the stuff that never existed before. Third entry point was instructional. It said, we've got to get this into every class. How do you get this into math? Oh, you write story problems like Heather transitioned to being Harvey 6 months ago. Susan transitioned to being Jack 4 months ago. How many more months I know it sounds crazy, but this is what's
No, it doesn't
happening.
sound crazy. I fully believe everything you're saying. I'm just horrified at like how intricate they are and how unbelievably sneaky, and like this is so subtle. If you're a kid and you don't know like what we know,
Hmm.
you know, live an adult life and you know what's real, I guess. When you're a kid, it's just like everything is kind of you don't really know. That's just so
It's insidious.
it's
It's
so
really slippery and insidious. And then the fourth entry point was institutional, and it was getting policies changed. And that's where we are. We have missed stopping the first three entry points, and they're in institutional with things like the so-called Equality Act and substituting gender for sex, um, getting
you
the
heard about that next week, right?
hmm Yep. Yep. I'm on a panel next week with the Heritage Foundation talking about their promise to America's children.
Can you
Um,
explain that? Because I actually had to have my friend Amy fully explain it. I'm not a lawyer or anything, and I was never political or any of that jargon. I'm just, it's
yeah,
always
I never was
nasty.
either. This is
Yeah,
not in my wheelhouse to
yeah,
like do activism.
yeah.
What do you want me to talk about? The
Uh,
so-called Equality Act or the promise to America's
y-
children?
both, I guess. Like,
Okay.
cause and how insidious that is that they're rushing this for next week
Hmm. Well,
voting.
they've been trying to push the Equality Act for a while. They were trying to, when Obama was in office, he wrote this Dear Colleague letter, which in that letter, it really substituted gender identity for sex. And that was when the schools started slipping it in. That was when you saw, and the way it happens in districts, the first thing they do is they update their non-discrimination policy, which every school system has. And the non-discrimination stuff is like you can't discriminate someone based on race, based on religion, based on pregnancy status. You know, there's like 50 things in there. Well, they slip in gender identity. So they've got
The non-discrimination thing, like that all makes sense and is fine, and
mhm,
we agree to that. Like that's you know fair or
yeah.
equal or whatever. But like this is where it's so sneaky, where it's again also it's just like no, it's not. That's not the same. It's like the LGBT. It's like T is not
Oh
what
yeah,
the
T is
rest
completely
is.
different from LGB,
Ugh.
completely different. Right.
People
And
think
so
okay, sorry.
and people, no, not at all. And people, I listen to that and I'm like, well, sure, I don't want
Mhm,
transgender kids
mhm.
discriminated against. No, they
Yeah.
should have the same rights everybody else does.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so, but once that gets in there, once you put gender identity in there, then you have opened the doors to whatever somebody says about themselves, you have to go along with and you have to support. And this is why we're getting 6'5" men playing sports with 5'5" women because that guy says, I say I'm a woman and you can't discriminate based on gender identity. That's where we are. So once the school systems put that in their non-discrimination clause,
Mhm.
then a year or two later, they go, oh, what does that really mean not to discriminate against transgender kids? And GLSEN, the Gay Lesbian Straight Education Network, which is a misnomer. It's no longer about gays and lesbians. It's all about transgender
I
stuff.
don't think anything that used to be about gays and lesbians has anything to do with actual gays and lesbians now, like at
No,
all.
no. And this transgender stuff is horrible for sexual orientation rights
Oh yeah.
because I'm talking to friends who are lesbians and they're telling me that like lesbian dating apps
Mhm.
are full of men. Some of them have more men who put a
Yeah.
little lipstick on
Yeah.
because these guys are so turned on by the idea of lesbians that they want to be one of them. And it's horrible.
And
And
you
I
have to
think
go along with it, otherwise you're a bigot, you're a
yeah,
transphobe, fear, make you feel like you're bad, it's your fault.
yeah.
You have to change your sexual preferences for
Hmm.
my sexual preferences. Bow down. I just am
Yep.
like, never ever like that's like isn't that rape culture? Like making people
Yes.
sexually do sexual acts of which you were never was in your head of what you
Hmm.
desired and what you even if I'm just like you've got to be kidding me. It's so clear to me what that is. It's really upsetting. I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, stay firm in what you want in your life. No one should
Yeah.
ever dictate who you should sleep with or be sexually active with or date or whatever. And people are literally
Yeah.
being guilted into this.
Yeah.
Like ignore your gut feeling, ignore what you know is in you and what is your
Hmm.
natural drive should be for someone else.
It's
No.
just been this mass cultural
Yep.
brainwashing, and
Mhm.
and where we have let ourselves be brainwashed is around the concept of kindness. And we've all been told we have
Yes.
to be kind, we have to be nice, we have to be sweet. And I'm like, when somebody wants to rape me, I don't have to be kind. I don't have to
No.
be nice. I don't have to be sweet. And when somebody's trying to take away rights that my mother and my grandmother and my great grandmother have fought for me to have the right to have women's things and spaces and protections, no, I don't think I have to be nice anymore. I don't
No.
have to
Fuck
be
that.
nasty, but no is not an unkind word. There's
No is
nothing.
enough of an answer. You don't have to, you don't need to explain anything after you say
Nope.
the word no.
Yeah.
Just, you need to respect my answer here when I say
Mm-hmm.
no. Like, that's,
Yep.
no means no. There's no magical meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Contrary to, this is why this whole ideology is like, it's going to be true chaos. Because, like, what does no mean? What does
Mm.
no actually mean? It's like,
Yeah.
come on, queer theory or whatever,
Yeah.
which is basically questioning reason or whatever. Like, questioning reason, really.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to distract you from the original question I think I had with the Equality Act thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Quality Act is trying to codify what Obama put in that Dear Colleague letter. It's basically just taking out biological sex and inserting gender identity. Therefore, biological sex has no meaning anymore, because if I can identify as whatever I want to, if I can identify as a man, then man has no meaning because I am not a biological man. And people don't really get how bad that's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And calling it the Equality Act is really
It's a
deceptive.
joke.
And it reminds me of something that happened here in my district during the election in November.
Mm-hmm.
We had an amendment locally on the ballot about gerrymandering. And, gerrymandering is where they redraw the districts to try to get the voting to go the way they want it to. Well, if
Oh,
we
okay.
make the district look like a big salamander, then we can get, Democrats in or get Republicans in or whatever. So there was an amendment on the ballot, and it would have done away with gerrymandering. There would have been a bipartisan team that divided up the districts. And so saying no to the amendment was let me think how this was. If you voted for the amendment, it stopped gerrymandering. So yes on the amendment,
Oh.
stopped gerrymandering. Well, one of the political parties in our district who really likes gerrymandering put up yard signs, road signs all over the place and said, vote no on this amendment, stop gerrymandering. It was completely a lie. Voting no on that amendment was keeping gerrymandering. And that's exactly what this Equality Act is about. It's not about
Yeah.
equality, it's about preferential treatment for people who self-identify as a sex that they are not.
Which is ridiculous. Like, it's so insulting to actual, equality. Like, it's just made up. Like, anyone could just be like, I'm this, and
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to believe your fantasy land. Like,
Yeah.
people, people can do whatever they want and think what they want and do shit in their bedroom and keep it in the bedroom. But like, why are we being forced to believe that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's where people should be drawing the line and being like,
Yeah.
no, absolutely not. And I watched these videos of back to the sports thing. I think it was Connecticut or wherever that is, where those two African American boys are on the
Yeah,
track
that's
team with the
Connecticut.
women. Yeah, oh, I got it right. Wow, I've heard it enough now. And I just see, there's like a huge gap, and they win. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, if I was in this stand, I'd stand up and go, what is this? And I'm like, everyone's just like, I mean, I guess if they have long hair, you can't really quite see, but
Well, there is a lawsuit. There is a lawsuit. One of
yeah,
the girls in that district, Selena, I forgot her
it's
last
okay. I
name.
remember hearing
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, she is fighting it. And I'm really proud of her because you stand up against this stuff and you get a lot of hate. You get a
Yeah.
lot of
Oh, yeah.
nastiness. So,
Cancel, lose your friends, your community.
yeah.
You lose your absolute comforts in your life. And man, it is so worth it because it is the most freeing thing ever. Because you don't, I mean, I'm not living in fear anymore of like misgendering. Even on Twitter,
Mm,
when I started the Twitter thing, I'm like, oh, I'm going to try. I have to like play along so I don't get banned. And then I was like,
mm,
no, I'm not going to do this thing. I'm not
yeah.
actively like searching for people to misgender.
Yeah.
Give me a break. You mean tell the truth?
That's one of those
Um,
new words that they made up.
it's fucking dumb. I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
lie. I'm just not doing this like pussyfooting and careful because I'm like, I don't care. Like, what do you mean? I just don't. I think that's another slippery slope thing where you
Mm,
start being careful and caring, and it's like, I'm not trying to offend you, nor do I care. It shouldn't be offensive to state biological truths.
Yeah, well, and you think about things that people have suffered through in the history of humanity. People have suffered enslavement. They've suffered systemic abuse. They've suffered racism. They've suffered being put in concentration camps, forced marches. People have suffered true violence and come through it. And to hear somebody tell me, you're committing violence against me because you used the wrong pronoun.
Literal violence.
Say, yeah,
literal. I'm like,
I just want to say, grow up.
Yeah.
Grow up and get a real problem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be slammed for saying that, but I don't care.
Why? What do you mean? It is so childish. Like the whole, where I'll say something that's true, and they'll be like, "Well, I thought you were born a man." I'm like, "What? That's so yawn. That's all you have." Or like the whole, they blocked me because they know they're wrong. Like it's just the most childish, like meme. It's just such like little kid reactionary things. Like some trans identifying man who's popular on the YouTube land was like, I'm a real woman, I was born a woman, and I'm gonna go into every woman's bathroom I want. Which is like, so clearly you're a man. If you were an actual woman, I don't have to sit here and go, I'm gonna go into every woman's bathroom I want.
It's like, not a celebratory thing to me.
Yeah. So it's so clear that it's like, look what I'm doing. I'm gonna do what I want, and you can't do anything about it. Like, shut up.
That's exactly what it is. And when they start calling names, I'm like, as soon as I get called a TERF, as soon as I get called a transphobe, I'm like, clearly you have no more arguments. Like that is saying,
well, they never had an argument because they start off with that. Yeah. They have nothing to say. I'm like, anything else before I block you because you're wasting my time? You know, I'm all for, I guess, having and I was wanting to find like trans identifying people that maybe have logical things to say to, you know, I'm very keen on listening to the other side because I think it's foolish to stay in your bubble for anyone. And
yeah, I have learned so much, Lindsay. I just want to say, since getting into this fight, and I have, you know, a lot of radical feminists get in trouble with other feminists for aligning with conservative women. I'm an independent. I would not consider myself either a Republican or a Democrat.
I hate that. I hate that thing.
I voted probably 50-50 in my voting career, either way. But to radical feminists, they consider me a conservative Christian. Some of my Christian friends look at me and go, you're a feminist. But anyway, having met so many people that I would not have met otherwise, I would not have crossed paths with, and like really getting to talk with them, I'm like, wow, I have learned a lot. I have changed some of my opinions. Yeah, that's cool. That should, you know, that should happen.
And we're talking, we're having combos, and
we're not hateful, nasty people. Most of us, every single person has a legitimate reason for believing what they believe. Now, they may be in error, they may be, you know, factually inaccurate, but there's a reason why they think what they do. And you can't talk anybody into a different opinion unless you know what it is. Why do they think that?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's so obviously a cult, like not allowed to speak to, you know, have outside sources other than what your ideology is. Wait, do we even get to the Equality Act? Like, it's just amending it. I know you already got to it. Well, the sneaky thing about it is, from what I've heard, people that are paying attention to this and Biden's EO thing, which Biden's EO is just a thing to be like, here's what I'm going to do in my presidency, what I'd like to accomplish. It's not exactly set in stone when he announces that, but still, to me, when I read all the, you know, erasing women, basically, not even basically, literally, I'm like, it's not I would like to get to this at some point. I'm like, dude, he's going to jump on that immediately. And then apparently having the meeting to vote for the Equality Act or amend it next week, people thought would happen like later. I'm not sure why, because I'm clueless about all this, but people seem to be shocked. Oh, I know why, because you're supposed to have public opinions and discussions to talk about it, I think, before you vote on something like this, and they're like, just not having that.
Yeah, well, he promised that he was going to pass it in his first 100 days in office. I was really hoping that was just a campaign promise, you know, that he was going to wake up and see what a disaster this is for women. But I think he's just carried off on his, you know, he's got to make He's got to make the other people in his party happy. He's got to, I heard a great term today, by the way, trandering. It's pandering to the trans lobby. I was like, Google, you've got to put that in my dictionary because that's a great word. I think that's what he's doing. He's just trandering because that's where the money is. That's where the power is. And transgender medicine and politics are $1 billion industry. It is huge. It is huge. And
patients for life.
Follow the money.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Also, sterilizing kids or people, and I had a discussion this week, and I've heard about the eugenics thing, and I'm like, oh, what? I don't know. I'm like, yeah, all this stuff. I'm like, I've never had to like think about going back, and because when I started this, I was like, wait, what is the difference between gender and sex? I don't know. I want to be really sure on this. I had to really look it up and read multiple sources because it is slightly confusing. I'm like, I don't even know how to define gender now. Like,
well, there's no definition.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that earlier. Like, in Biden's whole thing, he's like creating laws around this and whatnot, and like you can't even define it. He never defined what it is. Like, what is gender? What is it?
I just heard a great quote, if I can quote it, by Sasha Ayad. She's a therapist who works in this.
I love her.
And I watched this interview with her, and I wrote this down. So I'm like, this is perfect. Let's see if I can read my notes. What is gender? Is it related to masculinity and femininity? Is it a feeling? Is it just something you say about yourself? Or is it the norms and roles set up in the culture that are related to male and female? And what is a gender identity? According to the major clinics and medical systems, which are really pushing the gender theory, they say it's a personal internal sense of self and how they fit into the world from the perspective of gender. But they never define gender because we're told it means something different to every person. I had to write that down because there's it's this circular gender is how you feel about your gender. That's what gender is. And I'm like, you know what? Every fourth grader can tell you, or at least used to be able to, I'm not sure in today's public school system, but fourth graders used to be able to tell you, you cannot define a word using the word. You have to use different words to define the word.
Yes.
Not anymore.
How are we going to create laws around something that is so fluid and there's no solid definition? I don't understand that. Like,
unfortunately, I think it's just going to take people getting hurt. I hate to say this.
No, it's the truth. It's absolutely the truth. 100%. Yep. Abused.
It's going to take girls getting abused. It's going to take women getting assaulted in the bathroom.
Violated.
It's going to take girls getting handicapped, getting their necks broken on the sports field.
Yes.
When they get tackled by these enormous men.
Yep.
And I'm horrified at that. And I just want to cry when I think about there are actual girls and women out there walking around today who are going to be beaten, raped, handicapped, killed before people go, oh, this is a bad idea.
It's just so insane.
It's what keeps me doing this. It's what keeps me doing this. When I'm out in public and I'm just looking around at all the women and girls, I'm like, it could be her. It could be her. It could be her. God forbid it's one of my daughters,
It's so evil. Look, we're sunshine and rainbows and equality. And it's so beyond it's just unbelievably. And it kills me. This whole like, really? A man in a dress? This doesn't happen. Really?
How many times we've heard this never happens?
I'm like, sure, let me play your game. Maybe there's someone who is genuinely nice, whatever. By the way, I don't think any trans thing is real. You're not trapped in the wrong body. It's not. That's what I believe. Okay.
I agree with you on that. It's
not real. Like,
there's no scientific evidence to back that up.
None.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Wouldn't you think they would have science or studies to back it up? If anything, they're blocking studies or research coming out, like the Tavistock thing, about the truth behind it, because they're like, oh, can't have that out.
It's very much like the tobacco and sugar industries, where the tobacco industry wanted the science to show that nicotine was not addictive, so they hired scientists and said, we want you to show that nicotine's not addictive. And the big tobacco paid for the studies, so the scientists came back and said, hey, the tobacco is not addictive. And then 20 years later, we find the memos, we find the research, we find out, yes, it very much is addictive. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that's going on now. When you dig into the studies and the research that they cite for this stuff, they're bogus.
It's
They're
ridiculous.
completely bogus. Yeah.
There's nothing factual or scientific about it.
Mm-mm.
Um, yeah, how are we creating laws around like such a small percentage of people? It doesn't mean I think they're insignificant by saying, it's a small amount of people.
Yeah. No,
So,
everybody deserves dignity.
yeah.
Everybody deserves
Mhm.
protection. Everybody
As long as you
deserves
don't
to
infringe
participate in
on mine,
society.
like give
Right.
me a break. And like
Yeah.
no one cared to ask about women. How do you feel about this? No
Hmm.
one. No, nah,
Oh, I
nah.
so naively, when I first started waking up to
Mhm.
this, I naively thought my feminist friends are not going to stand for this. They're going to see that girls are being, treated badly. And I'm like, where have all the feminists gone? I've got feminist friends who have PhDs in
Yeah,
science and tell me, Maria, you have a third grade understanding of sex, of chromosomal XXXY. That's a third grade
oh
understanding.
my God.
No,
What?
no, I don't.
It just blows my mind. Like I don't know, biology and um, two sexes, male and female, has been known for how many years, and no one's questioned it, and it makes sense. And I
It's
mean,
based on our reproductive function, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You make
Whether or
small
not it
sex
works or not,
gametes.
okay, yeah.
Right, right. There's all kinds of disease and disorder. And I
Mm,
asked a friend of mine this. She's someone who was all in on the gender stuff, and God bless her, she was willing
mm.
to sit down and talk with me. So we sat down and
Wow,
talked about it,
lucky you are
and
lucky.
it was a great conversation. But
God,
toward the end, I said, she was talking about how it's an example of diversity, and I said, well, we don't look at like trisomy 21, Down syndrome. We don't look at
mm,
those and say that's chromosomal diversity. We look at
mm,
that and we say that's disorder. That's
yeah.
not what nature intended. I said, so where is the line between diversity and disorder? And she said, that is a fascinating question.
That is an amazing question.
We need to
Epic.
answer that before we start making laws around it.
Exactly, and there's been nothing of that. No sort of. I mean, conversations aren't even allowed to happen. You're
Hmm.
immediately called a hate term, or you're a
Hmm.
terrible person. I'm like, really,
Yeah.
for being curious and actually wanting to know what you do believe, and I have some serious concerns about this. And
Hmm.
can't you answer it? Can't. Here's the thing about that kills me about this, and I keep thinking about this. If you believe in something and you believe it to be firm and true, and you fully believe it, wouldn't you be like, yes, I welcome, come
Yeah.
on down. I will absolutely answer your questions because you're like, I got this. Let's go.
Yep.
When you try to, break their bubble or their ideology
Hmm.
or whatever they stand for, no,
Yeah.
no. Transphobe,
Yeah.
turf. It's like, hello. I mean, that's the biggest red flag.
That's
Of
a red
course, I don't
flag.
want to have a
Yeah. That's
conversation.
a huge red flag.
Their sandcastles will come crumbling down because your actual reality, biological realities, will break their fantasy
Hmm.
grabbed from the cloud. Like, just
Yep.
this
Yeah, I
is
am early on because I started working in my school district about this, and a lot of people in my school district don't like me anymore.
oh my
But there are
God, yeah.
several parents, several moms, or
God
ones
bless
I'm
you.
familiar with in my district who have transgender identified kids. And I have multiple times offered to take people out for coffee. Like, I will take you out,
Hmm.
I will buy you free coffee. You can get the $10 cup of coffee. I want to talk. I want to, we've both got a vested interest in what happens in the schools. Now, I have since pulled my kids out of public school, so I no
Yeah,
longer have a
got to.
horse in the public school race. But no mom has ever taken me up on that offer to take her out for coffee. And I've been mulling over this and mulling over this. I'm like, I don't think I'm a nasty, scary, hateful person. I'm not a large, intimidating person. Like, why won't they sit down with me? And I really thought about it from their perspective. And I thought,
Hmm.
they are all in on this because all the experts have told them they have to trans their kids. And they are all in on it. And they cannot entertain even the thought that they could be wrong, because if they do, they're guilty of damaging their own kids. That's a horrible, horrible feeling. They've been
Nailed
emotionally
it.
manipulated. They've
Yes.
been emotionally manipulated. And I thought, I get it. I get it why they
Yep.
can't go there.
No
That's insidious
way.
what the gender industry has done to them.
Yeah, admitting to you, admitting to themselves, admitting to the something that they created, which is incredible. Like I can't even
Mhm.
imagine.
Yeah.
They're just pushing, I guess, the cognitive dissonance. They're not even giving themselves the opportunity to uh, be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I forgot the quote I've heard about that, where it's because they know that it's going to destroy I just can't imagine the people
Yeah.
that have actually, the young people, or because it really is, I believe, the young people that, and there's a lot of young people that are on the internet and on YouTube that they've created this persona and they're making money from it. I've already mentioned this
Hmm.
before, but still, it's like, can you
Yeah.
imagine your whole existence, like what you think is your existence, which what you think is your real reality, which is not really.
Hmm.
You're gonna live. You'll be fine. Yes, it's going to
Hmm.
suck. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna feel. Alone and empty, but I promise
Yeah.
you, we're here to
Right.
catch you when you fall. Absolutely. Like,
Well, I think that's why. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh, well, I was just going to say, like, of course, I can't imagine being a young person and your friends and your whole group is your life. Like,
Yeah.
imagine being like, never mind, I know I'm not comfortable with this anymore. Especially when there's a massive amount of guilt and you
Oh,
were
yeah.
never trans anyways. Like, you
Yeah.
were dropped immediately.
Oh, they lose their whole support system.
Yeah,
And I think that's
support
why it is
system,
so hard. Yeah. I think that's
enabling
why it's
system.
so hard for kids to
Yes,
desist
yes,
and detransition from this,
yes.
because it's a cult identity that's been put on them and they've been sucked in. They're living on a cult compound, even if
Yeah,
they're still in your house,
yes,
because it has been infiltrated through the entire society.
yeah.
And to be able to turn your back on that and swim upstream, that's really hard. I give
Oh my
every
God.
public desister and detransitioner so much credit and
I'm
so
like,
many
those are the
kudos
real
for
stunning
doing
and braves, let me tell you.
it. They
Come
sure are.
on.
We've got, by the way, Partners for Ethical Care has a
Yes.
survey out for desisters and detransitioners.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can put it in
Of
anything
course
on
I
your
will.
video, but we
Yes, I
would
will
love
absolutely.
to just get stories. We've had, I think, 26. It's been out for a couple of days. We've had 26 responses.
Wow.
And it's fascinating to look through those and see what these people have gone through. So please, if you're a desister detransitioner, we'd just love to hear your story, either through the survey or just through our website, partnersforethicalcare.com.
Yes, thank you so much. What y'all do is amazing. Did you say you just started now having that survey out, or you've always had it out,
Nope,
or
we just
recently?
put it out a few days ago. Just,
But
I want to say even 2 days ago.
but prior to that, you had just like contact us if you
Mhm.
need help or
Yeah, we
something.
want to hear stories. We
Yeah.
want to hear people's stories. Some people have sent
Mm.
in, we've got a heartbreaking one on the blog by a trans widow, a woman whose husband
Oh God.
left her and left their kids to become a woman, and just what her family went through. People always they press that kindness button. Oh, you just need to be
Mm.
nice, to the transgender people.
Oh.
Think about what their families go through.
Yeah.
This is not just, oh, I'm just going to change my hairstyle and wear different clothes. This is a fundamental death, because males and females are not exchangeable for one another. And it is dad has died to the
Mhm.
family. And he's not just the same old dad who just happens to wear a dress and have long hair now. He's a fundamentally different person. So yeah, we want to hear people's stories. We've got the chat feature on the
Mhm.
website, and if there's anything we can help with, we want to connect you with resources.
That's amazing.
So
Thank you guys so much for doing that. That's such a wonderful, very, very valuable resource. I'm sure there's, maybe other websites or services out there where you can reach out, but I feel like I haven't done my research to look, but I feel like there's few and far in between because again, that's also a brave thing to do, to basically go against all of this in a sense, to even have that out there because not in like it's not being mean. Like none of this is mean. It's just like,
yeah, it's
God,
just truth. It's just
it
truth,
is.
and it's yeah, it's speaking truth and being factual, and I mean our goal is to stop the unethical medicalization of children. So that's what our focus is stop medicalizing kids who don't need to be medicalized.
Yes, and I want to mention that y'all have a wonderful YouTube that I've been absolutely binging all the episodes. Really valuable information for parents that are going through this. I'm not a parent yet, but it's yeah, there's all of this talk about the transgender everything. It's like, well, what about the parents that are going through this? And
Mm.
I think it's such a valuable tool to these poor freaking parents. And what other things do you have in your videos? I don't know. You guys just discuss everything about it, and it's
Yeah, we've
fantastic.
got we've got PEC talks, which is when some of our
Mm-hmm.
members talk about whatever's gone on in the news that week. We put
Mm-hmm.
out one of those every week, and we put out the Common Sense Care videos that Aaron Brewer and I do.
Yep.
Just trying to, again, we're not doctors, we're not
Mm-hmm.
therapists, we're not psychiatrists. We're not giving medical advice. We're just trying to say, hey, let's look at the different aspects of this and really think about what the best care might be for each kid. Because the experts will all tell you there's only one answer.
Yeah.
Everybody gets affirmation, which affirmation means telling the child something is fundamentally wrong with them and they need to be medicalized. That's what affirmation means to the gender industry. And so in the Common Sense Care videos, we're just looking at, let's look at each child as an individual and let's find out what's best for that child, not just slap a fast and easy label on them.
Exactly. Everyone is, you can't have a one solution for what everyone's going through, because I don't believe that the people that are becoming trans is just from one reason why they're doing that. It's so varied.
There's lots of things going on. And in no other, I mean, we say this in every episode, but in no other area of education, psychology, or medicine does one treatment plan fit every person.
Exactly.
Everybody gets looked at individually. Why not with
should.
this? Why not with this? Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I'm totally open for
We
anything.
went all over the place today, and I had so much fun talking to you.
My other podcasts go for I've had one that was almost 2 hours.
Wow.
I don't mind talking that long, even remotely. If you have the time, I don't mind it.
Well, I've got 3 kids. They're all doing various learning things, and my son has told me that he needs the office in 15 minutes.
Oh,
so
goodness.
getting booted. I'm getting booted.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. What was y'all's website? I like to put it in the description box, but I also like to have people hear it from you. Where can they find?
You can find us at partnersforethicalcare.com.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much,
you,
Maria.
Lindsay.
I really loved having you on.
Day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Sayonara.